chance to mute my little thing.
Oh, one question for you as well. When the comments and that come up, because my eyesight's rubbish and I'm used to looking all over the place, if I miss any comments, can you just bring me on them? Oh, one question for you as well.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Yeah, there we go. So I've got it muted now, and hold on. There you go. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to keep an eye on the questions for you.
Perfect, thank you.
And we'll just go there. So
yeah, you're good at this. So.
All right, so welcome everybody. Hey, we got DEFCON Clark, we got the Law, we got Quentin James, and some others in the chat. So first off, I just wanted to take a moment and thank everybody for coming here and watching. I am getting ready to launch a Truth in Music Gear series that's going to be coming out, and frankly, this is one of the Truth in Gear items, the microphone. So let me know how it sounds at the end. This is one of the tests. It's a cheap. It's called from Fifine. It's a wireless $30 microphone, and it works. It's a wireless microphone for $30.
Sounds good.
And it sounds good. But anyway, Truth in Music Gear, we're going to get down to where we talk about the different things that are out there and really give a real world take on the good, the bad, and the ugly. So hope you guys will all enjoy that. So today we have our friend and pal, Paul Shedden from Mission Engineering.
Hi, everyone.
And we're going to talk a little bit about, the stuff that Mission has to offer. They're all high quality, made in the USA kind of stuff, right? Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I haven't had one problem with anything I've had with Mission. Again, there's going to be some Mission items that are in the Truth in Gear. Yeah,
and if I could just say, we had a brief chat before we went live, right? And just to support what you're doing, as I said to you then, I'll repeat it again publicly. I think any company that where comments are made, now I'm not suggesting just your comments, but if people join in and they agree with what you're saying, Chad, then as a manufacturer ourselves, like other manufacturers should listen to that. If you make a comment about something that needs improving on our gear and everyone else disagrees with you, then obviously we're going to go, well, maybe Chad's got this one wrong. If you say something about our gear and people agree, then of course we're going to sit up and listen and go, yeah, good point. And the dog agrees with me too.
Yeah. We have some dog barking.
Extra fans. They can't clap, so they're barking along.
Sorry about the
that's all good.
So
anyway, I support what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got some people watching, and what we're really going to delve into today is, there's different devices out there that take a 3 amp draw to power. Am I correct on that?
Well, not up to 3 amps as high as that. But yeah, certainly what we call higher capacity, higher draw, higher current devices, such as the Stomp and the HXFX.
Exactly. And I think even something like the HD 500, I believe, had that much, it needed that much power as well.
Yeah, I think it was kind of over an amp, put it that way, but I don't think it's as high as sometimes the Stomp goes to. Yeah,
so there's certainly a need for something, especially with the Stomp being so portable.
Yeah,
it's tiny, yeah. And the very first thing I wanted to do was throw the brick that comes with it out the window.
Through a window or out a window.
It's a certain percentage the size of the actual unit, and listen, I know it has to do what it's got to do, and I realize there's a way you can route these things, but you get a few things on your board, and
I get it. So if I tell you the history behind why we're bringing ours out, which will back up what you just said. So first of all, the 529 named because it converts upscales from 5 volts to 9 volts. They were so clever, come up with these really clever names. 529, 5 volts to 9 volts, but HC for high current, is because I kept reading comments online after the Stomp started selling back in October, November last year. Seems so long ago, and yet only 5 minutes ago, about people wanting something as an alternative. And then I start reading very comments that concern me greatly about what people are choosing to power their Stomp with, as an alternative to the supplied power supply. As I said to you before we came live on the air, the product we're bringing out is not an obvious thing for mission engineering to do, because as a small company, we want to design things that appeals to the widest audience we possibly can, because we've only got limited resources and money. So something that's really going to be for Stomp users, HFFX, maybe some of the higher draw MIDI devices. It's a much smaller market to go at. But I was so concerned about what people were saying they were choosing to use to power their devices. I said to James, obviously he's the clever one, by the way, so nothing we discussed today is going to go into too much detail or technical stuff. I almost had to beg him, said, look, I know this doesn't make a great deal of sense to us, but we've got to do something, because people at the moment are taking risks, quite frankly. So I wanted to come on air and discuss what those risks are, what you should be looking out for with your choice of power supply if you're not going to use the supply one from line 6, the general principles behind where the problems lie in terms of damaging maybe things like the Stomp, or causing problems with the power supply, or maybe even causing something like it to catch fire without sounding alarmist. So I do want to cover that to start, and then move on to maybe some of the things that we make in the battery power supply line that use alternative kind of ways of powering devices, and what makes them unique, and what the advantages are to guitarists to at least think about going away from your standard power brick to something a bit different. That's kind of what I wanted to do today, and whatever else comes up in questions.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because I have put a link. I've put a link on the website to your 529 with the battery. I think it's $208. Right. I actually linked it to Amazon, so it's in the description. This does not cover the high capacity.
No. I wish it did, because it saved us doing all that extra work.
Yes. So when you go there, don't expect for the high capacity. This is just for your standard pedal board. But when will the high capacity one be available?
We expect end of March, middle of April latest. Everything's been regulatory signed off, testing. We test and test before we put anything out. So all that's been done. We're just waiting for components coming in. We'll probably make smaller batch numbers to start, so that we can double check our testing with people using them and confirming to us they're working the way they should. So yeah, probably end of March, beginning of April. Yeah, I think that's realistic.
Okay. So tell me a little bit of why you call it 529.
Yeah, so 5 volts to 9 volts. It upscales from 5 volts to 9 volts. And then the HC just stands for high current. But before we talk about the products, can we maybe talk about the actual why we want to discuss it, the potential problems of using something else?
Absolutely. This is, I open it up.
Cool. So this is more the reason for coming on. I just want people to be educated and informed a bit, and do some due diligence before they make choices. And I wanted to help with that, basically. So where do I start? I was thinking about this before I came on. I've mentioned this a few times in posts that I put up. I would liken it to, or try to explain what I'm concerned about with a standard light bulb that you'd use in your house. Without insulting anyone's intelligence, the reason that you get light from a light bulb, I'm not talking about obviously LEDs, etc. Well, I guess that's similar principle too, is you pass electric current through the filament more than it's actually capable of handling. Because it's more than it's capable of handling, it starts to heat up, starts to glow a lot, and it emits light. The only thing that stops it from catching fire or breaking initially is the fact that it's in a vacuum. There is no air in there, so there's no fuel, if you like, for the for that glowing wire to set light to. So as a result, quite safe, but obviously constantly turning a light bulb on and off and on and off, heating up that wire, cooling it down, heating it up, cooling it down, which is relevant to what I'm about to talk about next, means that at some point the filaments break, right? We all have light bulbs. When you stop working, you look at it, there's like a little black mark, and there's a break in the filament because eventually the wire gives out. It goes, even though there's no air in here, it just becomes brittle and breaks. So let's apply that analogy, thinking about the light bulb and the wire getting really hot because there's more power running through it than it's capable of handling. If you plug a device, it doesn't matter what the device is in, that needs over more than the power that the power supply is capable of actually sending. And bearing in mind, some devices do actually have protection built in for that. We'll come on to that in a minute too, to reassure people. What's happening is, in effect, you're pulling current from the mains into the device through all those little intricate wires inside the power supply, no matter whose brand you've chosen. If any of those wires are pulling or allowing more current to pass through them than they're designed to do, they're going to heat up, just as the same as an element in a light bulb. Now, how much they heat up, how far it goes, whether it combusts, all depends on the quality of the power supply. And there's some great power supplies out there. And I want to start off by saying, anything I say now, I'm not saying for a minute. There is definitely danger involved with using, a one spot or a Strymon Wii or something like that. These are good quality power supplies, and the chances are there's all kinds of protection built in to stop the worst from happening. But the general principle is, as you use these devices, the amount of current they draw varies. So when we did the regulatory sign off for our power supply, and you have to have it FCC approved and all kinds of stuff, we recorded a spike. Now, bear in mind, this isn't normal. A spike of 2.46 amps. That was the highest it went to. And there are various stages that the stomp goes through. For example, when any device starts up, you have capacitors and things like that in it. Now, again, this is me explaining it as it's been explained to me by James. I'm not on the design team. Those capacitors are a bit like a fuel tank. They fill up with electricity. They hold that electricity, and then they allow it to pass through. And that's important. So you get, especially with computers, and let's be honest, the Stomp and things like it, are just a very clever, small computer. So it can have a consistent, reliable, clean power supply, and it gets it when it needs it to produce all the various things that it can do. So if, when you first turn on the Stomp, it may well pull well over an amp. It may pull the 2.46. Actually, James didn't tell me when it pulled the 2.46. I should have asked, but it could. And chances are, let's be honest. So when any power supply manufacturer designs something with a 500 milliamp output, it's going to do more than 500 milliamp. Anyone would be crazy to go, well, let's make it so it's right on the edge, because people are going to exceed it. They're going to go over the 500 milliamp. I wouldn't like to say by brand, because we've not tested them, or even ours. Maybe James has tested it on, for example, you mentioned the 529p, our standard USB power supply, what it is capable of delivering. But it's going to be more than 5 amps, sorry, 500 milliamps, which is why people are finding that if they use 2 of the outputs on a device that's 500 milliamps, it's running the Stomp. But let's investigate in a minute what that really is, it running the Stomp. Because at the moment, it's not really just drawing an amp. It's drawing probably, and this is complete guesswork, and don't quote me on this because it will vary by brand to brand, maybe even 650, 700 milliamps out of those 500 milliamp outs. Because the headroom's been built in by the manufacturer to make sure that it doesn't trip out or break down at 500 milliamps. Because they're quoting 500 milliamps. So it means that probably most of these devices, again, without holding me to this, that have 500 milliamp outputs, probably deliver 600, maybe even 700 milliamps. So now they will, between 2 of them, go up to maybe 1400 milliamps, which is where, when we did our testing, pretty much the Stomp spent most of its time. Anywhere, it hung around about the 1.2 to 1.4 amps, 1200 1400 milliamps. I think it actually went below 1000 milliamps, occasionally. So it fluctuates depending on what you're asking it to do, how many of the processes are working. The more blocks you use, the more effects you're putting in. That all places a load on the device. Then, I know I'm doing all the talking at the moment, Chad, but bear with me.
Go ahead.
So then, temperature, humidity, all those things affect the efficiency of the power supply in terms of how much strain those cables are under to carry that current. Which is why computers have fans built in to cool them down, because they know that if you're pulling a lot of current through and they're hot, far more likely for something to go wrong. So for someone online in the forum who are saying these things for all the right reasons, they want to help and support their fellow Stomp users, in the case of the Stomp. Hey, I'm doing this. You've got a problem. I want to help you fix that problem. Why don't you do what I'm doing? That's okay, but what if they live in Florida with high humidity and the person who's saying it's working for me is in some cold part of Canada or something where it hardly ever gets hot? Even if it's right on the border of what the power supply using 500 milliamp outputs is capable of actually producing, it will vary for each individual person depending on where they are in the world and what the weather conditions are like. And then finally, and I'll stop on the subject, is like the light bulb, I mentioned earlier on, it lasts only a certain amount of time, because every time you heat up and cool down a wire and heat it and cool it, you're damaging it, in all simple terms, and eventually it will break or give in. So a solution now using 500 milliamp outputs for a brand new power supply you just bought may power the Stomp, but a year from now it might not. From all those turning it on and off, all those increased and reduced draws that you're placing on it above what it's meant to actually deliver, could end up in damaging the power supply. Or, switching the subject around the other way now, it could damage the Stomp. Again, Line 6 are clever people, so I'm sure they built in protection to protect against this. But if the Stomp doesn't pull what it needs, again, things could fail, things could break over a period of time. Constantly turning the Stomp on, for example, if that is looking for 2-point-something amps at startup and only giving it maybe 12 to 1400 milliamps, a few times, a dozen times, 2 dozen times, I don't know when, but at some point the Stomp's going to go, I can't keep asking for 2.46 amps and only be given 1.4 amp, and having to cope with that with the protection that's built in. That makes sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. You've got to give the right kind of, the right kind of power at the right time. Otherwise, there's all sorts of problems that can happen. And I've got 30 somewhat years in the computer industry.
Cool.
And one of the main things, in fact, one time, this is a little side story, but one time I hurt my back, and the place that I was working at, they had this one machine that was giving them all sorts of weird errors and all sorts of weird problems. And I had hurt my back and was not able to work, and I was off for a month. And when I went back, the work environment was horrible. They wanted me to go. And but they came up and said, we've had this problem since you've been gone, and wondering what it is. And it was all sorts of weird fluctuations. And what it ended up being, and I went over and I put my hand on top of it without knowing. I just kind of rubbed my hand over and says, power supply. Went and replaced the power supply, turned it on, all the problems disappeared, and I quit.
I wasn't expecting the end to be that, but that's
well. What right. It was is, when I went back, the work environment, because they couldn't fire me,
right? But
the work environment was made so hostile that I was like, and that's when I started my own computer repair business. So
cool. Oh, so you really do understand the subject.
Oh well, apparently enough to be dangerous, because I.
So take it the next step. So go back to what I said at the beginning. I'm not for a minute saying that using a conventional small power brick of some sort with multiple outs is definitely going to cause you problems. But I'm just saying to people, be careful. So check that it has kind of surge protection or some kind of protection built in case it starts to overheat. See if you can find out what it is capable of producing per 500 milliamp output. It is going to be more, but see if anyone actually done any testing to see what it really is capable of producing before it quits. Because once the stomp or the HX effects, whatever, settles down, yeah, it's probably within range, right? It might be stretching and pulling a little bit on the device using two 500 milliamp outputs, but it's on the surface looks like it's working that way, and it probably is.
Yeah, and that's the issue is honestly power starving it, and then how many people just have the stomp? They're usually putting on the board, and if they're powering anything else, they're really maximizing the amount of use that is in that particular.
Good point. Yeah, I hadn't even considered that. You're right.
So you're putting a draw on the whole system.
Yeah.
That you might barely be able to make just the one pedal work, and that's why I appreciate. In fact, you and we talked soon after to talk about. The power
stock came out. Yeah,
I wanted to power mine a battery, and well,
I'd say one more thing on the subject before we maybe talk about our solution and how hopefully it's going to help people. Is that, again, I can't talk for Line 6, but common sense tells me, why did they give you just you, but anyone who bought a stock, a 3 amp brick if it didn't need to be over 2 amps at some point during its operation? Why not give you a 1.5 amp brick or a 2 amp brick, something smaller? If it's only ever going to hang around the 1 amp, why a 3 amp power brick to start with? It's for a reason. Everything tends to be for a reason, especially clever guys like Line 6. So there's a reason for it. And all I'm saying, and the reason I want to come on the show and have that general conversation, was just please be careful. Anyone who chooses not to use the Line 6 supply, just be careful. Even like you said about testing with your hand for heat, right? If you're using it and you just bought a brand new power supply for your stomp and you're running through it and you're giving it a go, just periodically, especially if you play for a reasonable period of time, because it takes time for these things to overheat and to warm up. Just touch it with your hand, right? If it's not getting overly hot, probably okay. I don't want to say you are, because I don't want to commit me or mission to saying that, but you probably are. But as you said, things can break down over time within the stomp just because you're not giving it the power it needs on a consistent, regular basis. So there's two sides to the story: the potential damage to the power supply and property, and potential damage to the stomp or the device you're trying to power from.
Right. Exactly. Using the proper item for the proper tool for the job.
I'm laughing because I can hear my dad, his voice ringing in my ear. Growing up, that's all he used to say to me. Is like, you've all done it, right? You get out a posi dry Phillips, I call it Phillips in the UK, a cross threaded screwdriver, and it's too small for the screw head that you're trying to put into a piece of wood, and you're doing it, this will do, and it seems to be working. All of a sudden, you round the head off and you go, and they've got to get pliers out. You've got to try and undo the screw back out of the piece of wood. Yeah, the right tool for the job. Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself.
And I took 3 years of automotive when I was in high school, and
wow, cool.
there was the cartoon. Well, that's actually where I learned to troubleshoot, because if you learn that skill of troubleshooting, it carries over no matter what. It carries over from a car to household items to relationships to working with.
Yeah, okay.
It does.
I mean, where's the broken bit in the link?
And what my auto shop teacher used to say is, don't be a primitive Pete. Hammering with a driver. Just use the right tool. And I think that's the important piece here, is really just trying to get to the right tool. So now let's talk about your right tool.
Well, we hope it is. We've done the testing, the regulations and everything else says it's absolutely more than capable of supporting things like the Stomp Project FX. And as I say, what it does is again, without getting technical, it takes a 5-volt input source. Now that can be from a computer port, it can be from a wall wart, it can be from a 5-volt battery, but it does have to be USB-C. And the reason for that is USB-C can carry, again, coming back to how much power can a cable handle. USB-C can handle, I think, up to almost 4 amps, way more than needed. So the original USB-A and B ran about 2.1 amps. So again, on paper, we could have gone, hey, save ourselves a lot of trouble, use the technology we were using in our 529P, and just bring out one that has a 2 amp output on it, a 2.1 amp output on it. It would have, majority of the time, been enough for the stomp, etc., to work. But we know the stomp can pull up to 2.46 amps. And James and the team, being what they're like, they went, we're not prepared to take that risk. This thing has to cover any amount of power draw that it might want and when it wants it. So the 529HC has just over 3 amps it can deliver, which is more than enough for the stomp. And what it does is it takes 5-volt input, it upscales it, buffers it, for whatever better description, internally into the 9 volts that obviously the device needs, and then it outputs 9 volts up to 3 amps. I guess the important thing is what everyone's complaining about is, I should have brought one show and tell kind of thing. You know, it's tiny. It's probably about this big, if people can see that, by just over ½ an inch by 2 and a bit inches. It's crazy lightweight to the extent that you can put Velcro on it and just Velcro it up underneath the board. And our favourite, of course, is using 5-volt batteries, because then you can put one of those underneath or have it sat beside the board if you want to be able to easily remove it for charging. You go get one, awesome. And you get to choose how big a battery, exactly how big a battery you want to use with it. So that's the APC. That's probably a 10,000 milliamp battery by the size.
This is yours.
Oh, okay, cool. It's green. I didn't recognize it in green.
Yeah, I put a skin on it.
Of course you did. It looks awesome. I better say that looks really cool. So the one we use at NAM, to give you that. So let's move on to the next thing that I want to discuss, which kind of ties in with this at the same time, and that is battery reliability. I think people are a bit concerned of the idea of using batteries instead of plugging it into the mains, which I get. But let's remember when effects pedals, stomp pedals first came out, they were almost all battery powered, right? 9-volt batteries sticking in, what have you. But we wouldn't release anything we weren't 100% certain would be reliable and see you through a decent period of time, if that makes sense. So, for example, at NAM, we had a 20,000 milliamp battery, which was about, I don't know, 8 inches by ½ an inch by 2 and a bit inches, and it actually powered 2 Strymons, which are pretty power hungry, an RGM MIDI controller, 6 or 7 other little tiny stomp pedals, and we turned that thing on at 9:30 in the morning before everyone turned up at 10. We'd switch it off at 6 p.m. at night. I think I did a little video actually at NAM and put it out on social media. And of the 10 little bars that it has showing you counting down the power, it still had 2 left. So something like a stomp, once it settles down and it's running 12,000, 14,000 milliamps, on a 10,000 milliamp battery, you're going to get 3-4 hours out of it. On a 20,000 milliamp battery, a lot more. You know, again, depending how much of the peaking, the up and down that it's doing, humidity, temperature, all those things will come into it. But of course, the thing is, the batteries are so reasonably priced, you can afford to carry a spare, right? So I was demonstrating this at NAM. People come over with this huge big pedal train, all these pedals on it. Everything's lit up, everything's working. I would unplug the USB cable, and we had 2 529s actually powering that. We'll talk about it a bit later if you want to. And then I say to him, right, so your battery's just died, and look, everything's gone dead. Plug in a new battery, put in the USB, and in less than 3 seconds, I promise, everything's back up and working. So even if you mess up, you don't charge your battery correctly before the gig, whatever, carry a spare, right? Or if that doesn't work, have a phone charger, USB type phone charger with you as a backup, or it's not going to let you down. So I wanted to reassure people that battery power now, with these high power cells, if you get a decent quality one, again, a lot of these things come down to how well they're made, right? They're not going to let you down. And they're that cheap that you can afford to carry a spare. So I just want to dispel the concern that people might have about using batteries. But let's now talk about the advantages. This is where I get excited and the reason we developed this type of technology. So, battery power has been out there for a while. There's like the Volto, for example, that came out as an actual 9-volt battery. It didn't upscale from 5 to 9. It started off as 9-volt, and it has a couple of outputs on it, so you can daisy chain perhaps. But here's the thing: we all know that these batteries will only charge a certain number of times before they stop charging. They quit. They just can't charge back up. So the problem with buying a device where the battery is built in is that when that battery refuses to charge any longer, you have to throw the whole thing away and buy a brand new unit. The reason we chose to go with plug-in batteries, choose the size you want. I think on an airplane you can fly with up to 40,000 milliamps. That's a decent size battery. Is that they're low enough cost that if it stops charging, you throw it away, you buy another one. But your 529 or your 529HC, it still works perfectly fine. You just need to find another power supply for it.
Yeah, it's funny is I think you can fly with more than 40 as long as they're separated.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So
maybe. I mean,
I don't know either.
I think there's just limits per unit, but I brought all my camera gear, and I could have swore that I was gonna
set up all the alarms.
They actually was funny is they were still on strike at the time we went down the net, and I got separated out. They were gonna make me tear out my bag, and at the last moment somebody comes over and says, "Oh no, he's good." I was like,
thank goodness for that. Yeah, no, I agree.
I didn't want to spend 20 minutes because it took me half hour to pack in the first place.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's talk about the advantages. So the whole reason that I would recommend, even though you can use a USB port on a computer or say a wall wart of some description to power it, I would use battery as my personal choice because it eliminates the following problems. How many times do gigging musicians go out there and they can't even find a power outlet? It's kind of like everything's being used up. Like, where the hell do I plug in? Next problem, bad power supply. Another problem, mains hum, etc. Noise created by the power supply, not the power, but from the wall itself, right? If I find one and I don't have problems with supply and everything else, where is it? How long do I have to run power cables from it to get to my pedal board? And now, because my amp's back there somewhere, unless you're using some power cycles, I've got to run my audio cables alongside those power cables, again potentially causing problems and getting noise into your signal chain. With a battery solution, you're not connected to the mains. So now you can put your pedal board wherever you want. You don't have to worry about mains hum, etc., because you're not connected to the mains. We had a video done for us by a gentleman called Bill Walker, who's an amazing looper. But really, really good at what he does. I mean, people haven't heard about him, just Google him, Bill Walker. And he did a very cool video for us, which we weren't expecting, where he's in the middle of a field somewhere in Sonoma, where we in Petaluma. Maybe he's there. I don't know where the stage came from. He's got a Roland battery powered amp. So that's the only thing that the 529s are not powering. And he's got this huge pedal board, again, like we had at NAMM, with 2 of our 529s, a decent sized battery in the middle of the field. And he's just playing and looping and building. And it's mesmerizing to hear the music, but to see it in such a unnatural environment just kind of really illustrates what flexibility you get by having a battery solution rather than have to worry about where do I plug this thing in.
Well, and here's another use case is, if we have the stomp, and then you get your travel guitar, and then you've got your headphones. and you just want to take it and go practice. Well, having a way to have the stomp being powered by battery, where you can go anywhere and practice anything, and you have your whole tones, the stuff that you're used to. Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So,
cool. I hadn't thought of that one either. Yeah, no, thank you for that.
yeah.
So I think we've covered it. This subject, I mean, to say that the whole idea was to come on and do two things. One, just make people more cautious. That's probably the word I choose to use about their choice of power supply. Just do some investigation, make sure it's up to the job. And then number two, don't worry about our power supplies, battery forms of power. It's very reliable. It's not going to let you down if you choose to go that way. Everyone who's ever bought one of our 529Ps, which is our standard pedal board power supply, and it'd be the same technology for the HC when it comes out. We've got so many letters and emails. Does that anymore? Or phone calls, people saying how much they love it and they can't believe they didn't do it sooner.
Okay, so let's take a minute, because actually, based on that, we've got Aaron Short, who's here. We got DEFCON.
Yeah, hi, Aaron.
And we got Rich Antonelli. I think he said he was maybe not going to be able to make it, but he made it for a few. We have the Law here, and he asked a question. Will this be an approved power supply that will not void the Line 6 stomp warranty?
So part of what we're doing is, obviously we know the guys at Line 6 pretty well. James, right from the start, actually contacted Eric and his team and said, what is the specifications you require for an alternative power supply? So the whole thing, the 529HC, was built around confidential, obviously, because we have a non-disclosure agreement with them, all kinds of information that James was sent saying, this is how it works, this is why it needs this is why it needs that. And they went off and they come back with what will be the 529HC based on those specifications. Once we've got a final production ready unit, and that should be hopefully in the next couple of weeks, properly with all the graphics etched in and what have you. One of the first
Hold on. You there? You're breaking up. So something weird just happened.
I can still see I can see the little gold bars from Michael stuff.
If you could drop off and come right back in.
Do you want to try that? How do I do
Exit out and come back in the same link.
I see the little telephone at the time.
All right, that was interesting, but it was a signal interference. But we'll have them back on here in a second. So to answer the question, I do believe, I don't think it would void the warranty. They're working with Line 6. Sounded like a wounded animal. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you are. Hey, how do you sound?
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. There was some weird interference, but it's all fixed. So
this is all new to me.
Yeah, Joe Benevigna said sounded like a wounded animal. It was.
Sometimes I feel like that.
You and me both.
Yeah.
So basically, it shouldn't void the warranty. Obviously, Line 6 is the one who makes that determination, but they're very spot on their customer care, and I'm sure they care. I don't think there's going to be an issue.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much people heard, but what I said, just to briefly recap, is we were sent all the specifications by Line 6 because we have an NDA with them, and we do the co-branded pedals and stuff, for example, work very close with the team. And so right from the start, we built this thing based on what they said it had to deliver.
Yeah, so there shouldn't be an issue. So, yeah, they will make sure it's compatible. So that's what Joe said. So.
Oh, cool, perfect.
Yeah, so I don't think that there's going to be an issue once it's launched. So
yeah, cool.
We're all good.
And I just hope it solved people's concerns. I mean, that was the whole reason we did it. I say it made no sense to us as a small company to bring out a product that really only appealed to a small market. but we felt it was important to do it. To back up like our friends at Line 6, because I know they probably get a lot of stick over people saying, hey, I don't want to use comes with it. So we're trying to solve two things: help people with a safe product, and also let people get back on with enjoying their gear and not getting frustrated with things like the power supply.
Right. Absolutely. So you've got the entire Mission line, the stuff that goes with Line 6 gear. So
Yeah.
Joe B says Mission is one of their partners. So
absolutely, we love those guys. I mean, how many companies? Let me tell you a small story to give you an idea of why we're so lucky to be working with Line 6. Back in 2009 was my very first NAM trip. James back then was building his garage after work, and he said to me, "Hey, have you heard of NAM?" And I went, "What's NAM?" Right? Didn't know what the hell NAM was. Flew out to NAM. Back then, Line 6, Joe may have remembered this, was the company or not, I don't know. Used to be up on one of the upper levels in a room, and it was appointment only. You couldn't get in there unless you had an appointment with Line 6. You couldn't just wander in. We didn't know that. We're completely green. First time ever to NAM. So James says, "Hey, come to NAM." Like, yeah, sure. We turn up. Want to go see Line 6 because we've got this pedal that we worked on that we know works with Line 6 gear. Have you got an appointment? And I blagged my way in. I can't remember what I said, but I managed to convince them to let me in. Spoke to a person, wrong person, left. Came back in about an hour later, said, "Hey, mentioned the first person we saw him earlier on, but actually I've been told I need to speak to X." Blagged in again. Talking about expression pedals and what have you. So we went to see Line 6 after NAM that year, back in 2009. And Mike, bless him, who passed away from cancer, no longer with us, amazing guy, used to run up their marketing team. Simon does it now, again, an amazing guy. Sat down with us, even though we were this tiny little company, and said, "We love what you're doing. We love the quality. We love the reliability. It solves a problem for us because we get a lot of calls, people not liking the Line 6 expression pedal that we build. So you would take those customer care calls away. You can say to them, you understand, go buy a Mission." How many companies the size of Line 6 would support a tiny little company that we were back then? Not very big now, but we were tiny back then, and get behind us and allow us to put their logo on our products, recommend people to us. Fantastic company. We count ourselves so lucky, so grateful to have had that support early on, and we still get that same support right now. They tell us what's going on. They include us. They try to include our brand wherever they can, because all we ever try to do at Mission is improve the creativity of the gear that ours works with. We're not there to try to compete with people. We're trying to add functionality and things in that allow guitarists to be more creative and enjoy their instrument. And luckily, Line 6 saw that, I think, early on. They continue to see it. And we're very lucky to work with those guys.
And in a similar way, I'm indebted to Line 6, not quite as, the same, just different experience, but similar feeling is we've got, we've got a good relation. I personally have a good relationship with many of the people at Line 6, and, we've got the official, Line 6 Helix Facebook group. It's at NAM. It was at 18,000.
Wow.
It's now at 19,300 and something.
In just a few more months.
Awesome. Yeah. And it probably by the end of March or sooner, we're going to be at 20,000. So
congratulations, well deserved.
So I'm very, very happy to, be dubbed the founding father by Joe. And, and I can't forget Chris. He's been there since the beginning as well. Chris Saraga.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, of course.
We have, I have developed a whole bunch of products that fit the Line 6 gear, right?
Yeah.
And, nobody's going to buy that unless they have the feeling they're going to keep it.
Yeah, that's very good point.
And so we've got a robust amount of supporters in this group who have purchased my gear, my protection gear, my equipment, supported me, and we've got a group that I think has no match. I
agree.
And we were talking before the show, and while I still do a whole lot of work in the group, there was a period somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 that the group was actually kind of hard to manage, because what was happening is people would come into the group and they're used to the other groups, and then we had to train them, and we had to train the mods to do everything being kind.
Sure.
Now we've got probably one of the kindest support groups, and it's,
I agree.
And in my estimation, it's all because of what Line 6 has put out.
Right.
Because listen, if Line 6 wasn't supporting, if Line 6 wasn't part of this group, if Line 6 wasn't, there have been all from the lowest in the company to the highest in the company, and they all come in and partake in the group.
Yeah, here. No, I agree with that totally.
So I personally have made my customer care for my business and how I treat people around sort of the Line 6 model, and companies that seem to get involved, like Mission, have a similar thing. And I think this all raises the bar for other companies, and really Line 6 is kind of almost no match when it comes to customer care and customer feedback. But had they not addressed certain things, had they not addressed certain things in their methodology from years back, it may not be as good. So here to Line 6 and the team that they've built up. It's tremendous to be a part of it. So I'm humbled to be a part of working with you and working with Line 6. And breaking up a little bit. Hold on. Try and go out and come back in again.
Okay, I could do that.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. So, any rate, just wanted to thank Line 6 and thank Mission for everything they've done. And hey, Dave Murphy. How's everybody like this microphone? It's got a lot of plosives. Don't talk to Dave. Why? You're just giving him cruddy. Oh, hey, you got Ben in here. Sounds great. What is it? Okay, so this microphone, I think we're losing internet. The microphone is actually fine. I'll have some links and I'll have a review coming up. It's part of my truth series. There we go. I think your internet is going south there. Just bring it up. But yeah, here's the microphone, and it's wireless, and it sounds pretty good. I compared it to my very inexpensive SM57. Let's switch it over. How's that? Oops. Yep. Yep. Testing 1 2. This sounds okay. Not too sure why that was echoey. Well, all right, guys. Well, we've done talked about it. I think he might have had a few more things to say, but we might call this a day. Technical difficulty. So, yeah, technology. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. I will conclude. I will conclude with please watch and subscribe and like the channel. And I'm going to be doing the Truth in Music Gear series, the good, the bad, the ugly. And y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you for being wonderful. And check you later in the group. I need a win mic. All right. I'm out. See you later.